Hello, I am Funsu.
Ninja Master Phil.
And Brolin.
Together we're Foo Crew. Today we're reviewing the Keanu Reeves vehicle, 47 Ronin. Also starring
Hiroyuki Sanada.
Rinko Kikuchi.
and numerous others. Our basic setup being a adaptation, if you will, of the 47 Ronin narrative that takes place in a fantasy Japan full of mystical things. A lord known as Lord Asano takes in a young half-breed, part English, part Japanese, I believe is the breakdown of the genetics they give us, who was raised by Tengu, crazy raven-like demons in Japanese mythology, and pretty much brought him up to be, it looks like they never really specify his role at the castle homestead, but it looks like some sort of game master, some sort of honor.
Game master.
Game warden, whatever. And
Hagrid.
yes, he is Hagrid.
Keanu Reeves was raised up to be Hagrid, but without all the English,
Likeability or character.
or English charm, I was gonna say.
Anywho.
Lord Asano, while hosting a tournament, is framed by Lord Kira and his evil fox spirit assistant, and is forced to kill himself in order to keep the Shogun from totally taking his family to ash, essentially. Do you want to explain what happens next?
Lord Asano's daughter is betrothed to Lord Kira by order of the Shogun so that there is no strife or seek of revenge following the committing of seppuku by Lord Asano. Hiroyuki Sanada's character, Oishi, is thrown into prison. Keanu's character, Kai, is sold into slavery. And it just kind of skips a year. The implication seemed to be that in standard betrayal story tropes, everything's gone to shit. Peasants are hungry, they're being oppressed, so on and so forth. As Hiroyuki Sanada finally is released from his prison in an attempt to break his spirit, he decides to round up the remaining retainers for Lord Asano to, despite the Shogun's orders, seek revenge.
And to add another layer of drama, the marriage that is going to occur between their lord's daughter and the evil Lord Kira that framed her father for murder is mere weeks away, so the chastity clock's heading to rape 30 pretty quickly. They need to stop that as well, so there's actually a timetable for the revenge, and that's why they're not going to just sit on their laurels and actually build up a decent plan.
Which prompts the third arc, wherein Keanu Reeves, Hiroyuki Sanada, and all of the 47 Ronin team up and go on their epic adventure to save the day.
That is the plot. Now, as far as getting the band back together, etc., goes on the plot, it all feels very... Part of it feels rushed because not only are we trying to have our 47 Ronin movie, we're also trying to have our Keanu Reeves movie, which, as we mentioned before, he's raised by Tengu. His subplot pretty much revolves around him confronting them again in order to get swords of magic sharpitude for his samurai buddies for this revenge story. First of all, it feels very tacked on because, quite frankly, it's just not given enough time. The script doesn't really try to weave in any of the crazy mystical elements. It feels very lazily grafted on. I feel a better screenplay would really help it not stand out as much. The mystical elements just feel very not belonging to the setting, which is really weird because they're creating pretty much an alternate history Japan for this movie. And everything that's alternate about it, though, doesn't feel like it belongs because they don't really spend enough time developing, in my opinion. But anyway, Keanu Reeves' story, which is where most of the mystical stuff really stands out, or at least kind of takes the driving force of the plot, is pretty much about him finding a place in the universe. Because he's not a Tengu, so he couldn't stay with them. He's not fully human because they've just taught him too much and essentially, I wouldn't say corrupted, but they've turned him into something not normal. And he can't really integrate anywhere in Japanese society because of his race. So it's very much this guy trying to find his place in the universe. It does resolve. He does get his acceptance, etc., etc. It just doesn't spend enough time making us, first of all, care, and second of all, it doesn't spend enough time really making it the transition motion, if that makes any sense. He goes from outcast to accepted with not too many steps in between. Essentially the only thing he really does to earn his place in the group is getting them the swords from his Tengu family. Which I'm not saying it doesn't contribute to anything, but just that's something really a full movie should be for. It shouldn't be a subplot the way it is in here. And unfortunately, though, it takes so much time that it detracts a lot from the 47 Ronin plot, but it doesn't fully work because of all the time spent on the 47 Ronin plot. It's pretty much we got two movies, both trying to be the main movie, and they don't spend any effort to integrate them, so they're just competing against each other, and neither one wins, really.
I was actually very pleasantly surprised with this movie. I was the only person I think that would have been... There's like maybe 2 or 3 people I know that were more full of hate and vitriol when these trailers came out than myself. Fun Sue, of course, one of them, and then some of my ninja up in Minnesota.
Because it involves hate, so of course Fun Sue being the font spit that he is.
That aside, this is one of those movies where the trailer really gives you a false sense of what the movie is, and for that I am grateful.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah. Like things at the trailer. Crazy tattooed skull dude with flintlock pistols, fucking shit up. He's in there for like a minute.
If
Tops.
that, and I'd also point out, not only is he in all the trailers, like every movie
He's on all the
I've
posters
seen,
too.
Even in the movie, even the poster was right next to the room where we were watching it, had him in the center.
The Japanese 300 vibe the trailers give really isn't present in the movie, and that is a wonderful thing. As far as pros go, visually it's a gorgeous movie. Some of the computer-generated creatures really could use some work, but on a whole, the set design is fantastic. Lots of practical sets, gorgeous costume design, great use of color. Even in the dark scenes, it's very, very vibrant. It worked out really, really well. Overall, like, Hiroyuki Sanada really carries the plot. Like, he is the main character, even though all the posters show you Keanu Reeves. He carries the plot of the 47 Ronin, which is the bulk of the story. He carries the Bushido arc the most of all the characters. And, I mean, it's Hiroyuki Sanada. If you've ever seen Twilight Samurai, even to a lesser extent, Last Samurai, the Ring movies, he is an amazing actor. And he did dial this one in, and I'm very thankful for it. Rinko Kikuchi, aside from 1 or 2 scenes, her final turn into a dragon fight scene just seemed really unnecessary, which is tying something else I will get to in a minute. But as an overall villain, fantastic. I want to see this woman in more movies.
She did really help carry a lot of...
Yeah.
I would say this movie would be far less enjoyable.
Yeah, if we did not have Hiroyuki Sanada and Rinko Kikuchi, this review would be going very, very differently right now, I think.
Yeah, honestly, Lord Kira, who's technically, at least for the samurai half of this film, the main antagonist, and he tries to be like deliciously campy with that please punch me in the face smirk he has on the whole time, etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is, he's just not that engaging. Rinko really carries the
clearly the power behind the throne.
Well, yeah, she's that, and she has the
in more ways than one.
Hey-oh.
the antagonist status. Really, she carries the whole weight of it. She's the one who's so deliciously evil.
This film very much feels like a labor of love. The guy directing this clearly knows the myth. He knows the history. He knows the story. He loves the story. Just didn't... Someone in there really was hell-bent on making sure it did well domestically.
Well, someone wanted this second movie in there.
Yeah. And that's where the disconnect begins. Like, Keanu Reeves brings down the movie not as Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves' performance was fine. I honestly have no issues. He's not nearly as witty as he is in most. And he's not nearly as, whoa, as he is in his other movies.
He did seem less stoned.
Yeah, but they still had to shoehorn in the magic white guy. And honestly, this is one of the worst I've seen in that regard. Like, everyone treats him like absolute scum. There's a monster.
It's literally magical.
Yeah.
And white.
Yeah, there is a monster hunt at the beginning scene. It's really the only action scene I don't think really needed to be there. The others at least kind of keep the pace rolling nicely. But they go in really early going, wow, God, we hate him because he's a white guy. And then 2/3 of the way through the movie, it's, wow, white guy, you're awesome at stabbing people. I am so sorry for mistreating you. Fun suicide. It's very much a man finding his way in the world, and it's just shoehorned in unnecessarily. If they had focused the movie on him, it would have been fine. The best thing they could have done would just have been not have him. Yeah. The mystical edge of the story actually works really well. It's kind of fun to think that this actual historical event was kicked off by malicious fox spirits being bastards like they do. In the end, but with the Keanu, they have to tie in all this white guy being awesome and loved by culture he's foreign from, and then has an extremely unnecessary but pretty cool looking fight with Rinko Kikuchi in the end, where honestly I think her character would have been better served by her just fleeing to do mischief another day, rather than, climactic battle in
kind of like
dragon
Fu
form.
Manchu style, like, well, I mean, again, and then, yeah.
You may have escaped this time, but other things is the movie flows pretty well. Very slow burn with the occasional spark of action to kind of keep you moving forward. I'm assuming the Kirin is what that was supposed to be in the beginning. Being hunted out of nowhere. Retrieving Keanu from the Dutch island. Let's throw in 10 minutes of Pirates of the Caribbean because...
See, that's in our action scene.
Fuck it, I guess. Yeah, they could have done without... Like, the fight scene in there, and I actually was very pleased that Kusarigama was used correctly for once.
Yeah, you're talking about, where he's fighting, like, the giant ogre thing.
Yeah, the ogre's using a Kusarigama correctly.
Right.
That's kind of that's the really odd thing about this movie, is there's so much historical stuff that is done correctly. The weapons are wielded accurately for the most part. They address seppuku is not repairing your own honor, making sure your dishonor doesn't harm your family, things like that. And the mythology, if you don't know this stuff, you're lost. If you're a fan of the genre, a fan of the mythology, a fan of the culture, you can follow this movie without any problem. If you don't, you get confused. A lot of the people around us in the theater walked out of it because they were expecting the trailers. They did not get it. The final assault on Lord Kira's castle was amazing.
Yeah, see, I feel...
And I'll leave it on that.
If they'd done it like some of the other adaptations after the story have done, and yes, I understand they have to have the right to do it the way they want to do it, that's fine, but the versions I have seen and have enjoyed essentially have no action scenes until the big set-piece ending vengeance scene. And honestly, that's the only action scene in this movie that I felt was necessary. I feel like there was a lot of excess action scenes. The Tengu fight, for what it was okay. I felt it was really drawn out, especially once Keanu Reeves starts using super speed, which apparently you can teach people. It's not an inborn ability, which is cool, but it's not really explained well enough. And granted, they don't make it a huge part of the plot, but it comes up in such key moments that you almost kind of want to demand an explanation. Like, the 2 times it comes up, it literally saves the day, with no real further effort. So as far as the seppuku scenes are concerned, they're one thing that really hurt in this movie, which is pretty bad because they hold a lot of dramatic weight, as any ritual suicide should. The problem is this movie apparently demanded a PG-13 rated by someone. I'm assuming an executive head somewhere. It's really hard to do a PG-13 ritual disembowelment and not make it look silly. And this movie, it did try its best to do the drama, like, properly. And the lead-ins to the seppuku scenes are appropriately dramatic, but the fact of the matter is you see the guys open their shirts, close their eyes, and then there's no blood.
Well, you're tense, because everything's, like, here.
Yeah, but even when it zooms out afterwards, there's not like a drop anywhere. Like, it's the cleanest, like, they're just full of, like, antibiotics or some, like, they don't have what people have inside them. And, I mean, they could have even done this traditional Japanese thing, which is you cut away from the violence and you see, like, a splattering of blood, just, like, in some impossible angle on some beautiful white whatever. And they didn't opt for that. They opted to just essentially have bloodless suicide, which, for me at least, it really just kills on a lot of the drama. I'd say that was one of the few scenes that, like, just demands blood. And when you don't have any, you really take a lot of the drama out of it, because it's hard to feel empathy with people that don't have anything inside them except air.
And honor.
And honor. Oh, they're brimming with honor. Which, as any 47, I mean, okay, as much as I want to, like, harp on Hollywood for doing the stereotypical Asian honor thing, if there was one story that just requires that no matter what, 47 Ronin is it. Like, it's certainly not a movie that is going to have anything else. I mean, you could try to make it satire, the whole Bushido Code, which some artists have used 47 Ronin to do very well. Habu being one of them, movies that does that very well, etc., but clearly they just want to tell the traditional 47 Ronin story. And that's also, that purpose is somewhat defeated by this whole PG-13 thing. As well as Keanu's mystical, trying to find himself in the world sort of thing, because it takes up too much time.
There's two kinds of villains in the world. There's the kind of villains who, like, use their villainy to, like, build themselves a not villainous world where they're on top. And that's Lord Kira. Like he's still, like, there's this line later in the movie where he's talking to Mika, and he's like, you might hate me, but one day our children will be of the same bloodline. Like, he's not imagining this as, like, a bad thing. It's like Hades and Persephone. It's like, it's resisted because she has no choice, but that he probably doesn't plan on mistreating her. The second kind of villain that there is in the world are the villains who are just in love with being evil at every opportunity. They don't have an end game. They're not out to become president of the United States. They're not out to achieve. They're really not out to achieve any kind of end, in spite of the fact that Rinko Kikuchi tells, like, you will be Shogun, like, ha ha ha. It's like I never got the impression that she really cared about that. Like, she's just doing her own thing, loving every second of being just as evil as she can be, and she's the Type 2 villain. Now, I like the movie. I would go ahead and give it a positive review. I like it just as a movie. Enough of it worked. There are more good things about it than there are bad things. It didn't leave anything to be asked at the end. Everything was nice and cut off.
Seriously?
Yeah, I went there. There weren't any hanging ends from the front part of the story either. It actually explains where Keanu Reeves comes from. I won't say what. It introduces his supernatural background in each of the 3 acts. It follows the 3-act formula nicely. It is a well put together movie. It clearly looks like the script is the one exception to that entire statement. There were room for better scenes. There was room for scenes that weren't included, and there were scenes that could have been done better. But overall, like, especially when you look at the painstaking detail, real sets, I hate that that's a novelty in this day and age. Costuming had to be a nightmare for this movie, but it was well executed. Everyone had their own unique look in the movie. The swords themselves, the magic +1 katanas that they get from the Tengu, I really liked their design too, because it looked like kind of like that hilt was like made out of like bone or something. Like, so it clearly blended in like a touch of the supernatural, and it's a real world device. So
yeah, I do like how it didn't go super fantasy on the sword.
Every set was painstakingly crafted, and this is one thing. It's like what I call island settings. And it's because every single setting was painstakingly crafted to look distinct from every other setting in the thing. When they go and attack, when they try and do the ambush, it's in a big circular flat field with almost no lighting, and there are these cool straw teepees everywhere. And that becomes like, and then when they're at Lord Asano's place, you have, like I mentioned before, like the red stone gravel, the like classic wood, like almost Last Samurai village level pastoral Japanese setting. And then, like, when the Shogun comes, they do an almost Curse of the Golden Flower level color explosion where you can tell who's literally wearing their alliances on their sleeves because everyone's wearing a different gigantically bright color pattern. Like you can tell who Asano's boys are because they're all in super bright ultra red, and you can tell the Shogun people are all in super bright ultra gold, and the Kira's people are all in Technicolor Dream Blue. It's a detail-oriented movie, and I like that. There's clearly time taken. Again, the script is the weak part. Like, big plot problem we brought up earlier in the notes was they just let Hiroyuki Sanada out of a cage after having captured him.
Like I said, mere weeks before the plan. Like, if they kept him for 3 more weeks.
Yeah, if they
plot.
Yeah, if they had just not let him out of prison for no reason, then the plan would have worked. You just imprisoned your rivals and declared the other retainers Ronin, and then they just didn't get revenge because they didn't have a leader, and they didn't have like the backing of the peasantry anymore or the infrastructure support systems to like win.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you give them their leader back, then they can get a plucky attitude and come back at you with a last-ditch effort.
It's very much my least favorite kind of character action. Action that is done without motivation except to clearly move the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I have no reason to do this except the story requires it. That's why it happened.
The other thing I like is that the performances were good. The performances were really good, especially for all the four. Even the shoehorned ones in were charming enough for me to let it pass. That everyone was super excited to be in this movie.
No one was here for craft services.
No one had to have their arm twisted to be a part of the 47 Ronin movie. Maybe they didn't know that they were going to be a part of this 47 Ronin movie.
They just saw 47 Ronin like, I'm in.
I'm in. Because, like, apparently that's just the script. Like, if you get plugged for 40... If English people get to be in Doctor Who, they're like, yay! If Japanese people get to be in part of 47 Ronin, they're like, woo! Which is actually much more likely, because I feel like there's way more roles in 47 Ronin than there
there's
are
there's at least 47.
In a given arc of Doctor Who, which is like 8... minus the aliens and side characters no one cares about.
So, final thoughts then?
I'm going to go ahead and give a 7.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it ain't bad. If you like big budget samurai films and you don't mind it being, and you can forgive it not being perfect, it does a lot of things right. It's enjoyable. Big screen, big noise, big sound. The music is good. The production's good. The performances are good. Go see it.
Alright, now, people, my math is not going to seem correct to you, but I assure you, it's been done with great thought. What essentially I feel like we have here, like what it really boils down to, is I got 2 solid 6 movies. Keanu's movie would be a solid 6 movie. The 47 Ronin would be a solid 6 movie. They're combined so poorly that it turns into a 4. I feel like just too much of the 47 Ronin movie and too much of the Keanu Reeves movie is pulling from the other for them to cohere into a good product. And also, I know not everyone's going to dislike Keanu Reeves' performance as much as I did. I just feel like there was a lot more you could have done to make that character engaging that just wasn't done. And unfortunately, we spent a lot of time with that character. That being said, you know, I still give it a 4. It's slightly below average. I say it's a mediocre Hollywood action film with some really good flavor. Rinko does her best to try to save it, and she certainly gets her, like I said, her female Vincent Price on. She's deliciously evil. If these people want to make another samurai movie, I'd be so down for it if I didn't think that they were going to rush it like they did this one. Or whatever happened in this production process that made these 2 movies have to be one. If they could not do that again, they could probably make a really solid movie. But I'm going to say 4 out of 10.
As a whole, I really enjoyed it. Keanu's part, I think, the movie would have been better for it just not being there.
That's true.
It wasn't bad. Like, it on its own, it would have made a solid movie. You just don't get why he's there. Because only a handful of times does his arc actually seem to connect with the main plot. Other than that, I wanted to stab the narrator. I hate that narrator so much. Unbelievably Hollywood-y. Like, Blade Runner voiceover bad.
Okay, I'll give you that.
It's just at the beginning and the end. It's like up 2 minutes of the movie.
His presence is minimal, much like the man who's on all the advertising.
Yeah. Anywho, that aside, The script does range from pretty damn good to brick upside my head. If you can get past that and just kind of soak it in as an action movie that is considerably more faithful to the source material than I ever anticipated it would be, I think the people who were in the theater when we saw it that were disappointed with it because they weren't seeing their trailers just further showed why I was able to enjoy this movie. I would honestly give it 6.5 to 7. As a whole, I was able to disconnect enough from my knowledge of the material to just enjoy it. And there's enough cultural and like mythological things to be distracting. And the action was good. There wasn't a lot of jump cutting. Visually, it was gorgeous. The costumes were great. As a whole, like, I'll buy it when it's cheap, probably.
1080 Blu-ray.
Yep, 1080 Blu-ray. Once it's like tenner on a Blu-ray, I'll grab it. Yeah, I'd say 6.5 to 7, depending on my mood at the time.
Alright. So, that is our opinion on 47 Ronin. Stay tuned for more great stuff on this channel. Thank you and have a great day. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe.
Comment below. Subscribe.
Last thing real quick before you guys go. We have the cast pulled up, and there's a character,
Oh, yes.
Neil Fingleton, listed on the cast on IMDb as the Lovecraftian Samurai. Now, here's your homework assignment. If anyone can figure
Worth
out...
500 foo points.
You'll be our favorite person in the world. If you can figure out...
Don't do that. Kara Hugh's still alive. They don't know that.
They don't know that.
If you can find out who the Lovecraftian Samurai is.
I want a solid... You gotta have evidence. I need to know which character was the Lovecraftian Samurai and why. And because I need to know who Neil Fingleton is.
As a rabid Lovecraft fan, not a single thing in this movie jumped out at me as particularly
You might think there's some samurai with a bunch of tentacles or something.
Nope.
That does not occur in this movie.
You didn't see Cthulhu Takeshi? Like...
Wait, what? I must have been on asleep.
Oh, now that you say it that way.
Yeah.
Now I
He
feel
was
silly.
the 80s storytell squid monster. You know, in the backdrop, like with a katana and a kabuto helmet.
Are you sure you weren't reading like Mountains of Madness on your Kindle during the movie?
Because I was watching the movie.
You positive?
I'm pretty sure.
Because I'm almost positive an 80s story.
Anyway,
There was no squid
Lovecraftian
monster.
Samurai, find it.
Please comment below if you can tell us, like, oh, it was that guy there. Like, we're looking. We want to know. We're confused.
Yeah,
I
just
being this
love
confused.
honestly, I just love the description Lovecraftian Samurai. And Neil Fingleton is an awesome name.
You know what? I take back what I said when I said either one of these movies could have been their own movie. Let's just cut all that bullshit. Let's make a Lovecraftian Samurai movie.
Can that be
Why
the title,
not?
please? Just
Lovecraftian Samurai. Give me like a Shogoth with a katana.
They can't do that because Japan signed the treaty with the world that they wouldn't actually make any blockbuster tentacle movies.